Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy. Still with my morning voice, even though it is by no means early in the morning. I'm here to introduce the Tarot of the Southwest Sacred Tribes, which is my September deck. And I am happy to be getting to know this deck better and seeing. I suspect it has limitations, much as I feel attracted to it. That's always a dangerous place to be for me. It's like, the decks that I find attractive, and then it's like, and they end up not having an obvious use. I think I've had this in bed with me before going to bed a few days, just kind of flipping through it. And here on this video, I would like to you're probably not going to be able to see them very well, but I'd like to lay out some of the suits and see what's going on in them. So the problem is that the suits tend to be a little pippish. The minors tend to be a little pippish, and I feel like this deck overall has kind of a flat mood to it, or perhaps downcast mood to it. And I'm not sure if that has to do with, and I would say that's not true in the majors, not true in the cards that you're looking at right now, but in the minors, and I'm not sure if that has to do with the way this artist, who I don't believe was native, she was from Canada, which, I mean, she could have been native from Canada, I don't know, but if that was her perception of Native American tribes in the Southwest, kind of seeing them in a depressive or defeated way. Again, the majors really don't reflect that to me, but the minors kind of do. And or if it's my own Anglo prejudice, wanting more expressive faces, and not to look downward, which I know that certainly in I mean, I don't know of a Native American nation that doesn't prize kind of dignity over friendliness, or seeing dignity as friendliness. So there's a totally different sort of mindset about emoting going on there. And then I know, and I don't know if this is true of Native American, North American, as in within the United States, if the peoples of the First Nations here had that the whole thing of looking down and not looking people in the eye as a matter of respect. Of course, many people across the globe have that anyway, but and then there's and I know that in the Central and South America that's a big thing, from having taught English as a second language. That's something that in this area it's important to be mindful of. The whole, look me in the eye thing is not, doesn't function, isn't in those cultures. So I'm going to be looking at that as I look through the minors, and I'm also going to be looking at some of the symbolism that's being used. And again, they're kind of pippish, and it's like she's added these little signature symbols that are not explained anywhere, but seem to have some variance in meanings on the cards. So it's almost like reading Marseille, which I'm not particularly adept at. So let's take a look. But in any case, as I was looking at these, you know, before going to sleep at night, I thought, you know, I really don't have any problem with the majors. And if nothing else, I could keep the deck and use it as a majors only deck. And I find her choice of colors really fetching, even though I don't particularly like red or orange. I don't know if it's the yellow. I do tend to like yellow. Not super bright yellows normally, but if nothing else, it would be a really beautiful majors deck. And so I'm just going to lay out the majors here. And then Judgment and the World. So there they are. There are the majors, and I think I just don't have any problems with the majors particularly, and I think they're quite beautiful. Really like the graphic art in them. And of course, I can always read the minors according to the Rider-Waite-Smith system regardless. And you can see here that we have some of similarities with Rider-Waite-Smith, but here a little less so. So with the pentacles, what we have, sorry, I need to get them so that you can kind of see them. And I'm going to hold these up so that you can see what I'm talking about, because you can't really hear. I'm going to get my little pointer stick though. So here and here, and I'll put these up, and here and here and here actually. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this. But usually there's 2 or maybe 3 of these things. There's these little symbols here and here and here and here and here. And they have kind of a brown or terracotta at the top, and then a blue or a periwinkle blue purpley thing down below. And or it's switched. So, I mean, again, that seems to me like it's functioning in a Marseille way. So you see on this side, you have the darker tone on the top, or the earth tone on the top, and then kind of the sky underneath. And here you have the earth tone on the top, the sky underneath, and here we have the sky on top, the earth tone underneath. And here we have the sky on top and the earth tone underneath. So what do we have? We have, oh, and here, we also have it here with the sky on top. So we have 1, 2, 3 with the sky on top, and then we have 2 with the earth tone on top. Does it mean anything? I don't know. But in some of, and maybe in some cards it does, and maybe in some it doesn't. You know, so here we have the earth tone on top and the sky on the bottom, and it's and they're equal. So is it saying that these things are equal? And here he seems to have already made his choice, unless he's trying to choose whether he wants to put this one down and pick this one up. This was a little baffling to me. Clearly there's nobody working on it, and so here we have the sky on top and the earth on bottom, but here we have the earth on bottom, sky on top. Can I think of that earth tone and that blue, that sky or water on the bottom, meaning material versus spiritual? In this case, looking at it today, this morning, I'm just thinking, all right, so this is him maybe thinking about how to build something, thinking about how to manifest something, how to create something in the material world. But he's basically in the process of thought. Another thing when I was thinking about the facial expressions is I thought, I don't think in the Rider-Waite-Smith there's that much in the way of facial expression. So I don't even know why that's hitting me, unless again it's the head posture, the downward cast as opposed to looking straight up. Well, they do have some, they're looking content, or a little cranky. I'm just looking at the seven of the Seven of Wands, and he doesn't look very pleased. I have my Smith-Waite here handy, my Smith-Waite Centennial, but I'm not going to pop it up and show it because I don't want to mix up the cards, because I had done a reading that I haven't really recorded. So here's a card that has only one of these with the earth on top. Excuse me, with the sky on top and the earth underneath. So this essentially keeps the arrangement of a Rider-Waite-Smith deck with, which I think of the pentacles in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck as significant. They're positions. To me, this is like your foundation. So like your savings, you're going to keep that, right? And or normally in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, this is the one that's being held on to. So maybe these are the things spent in order to survive. This is the one you're holding on to, and this one you're thinking about, or maybe investing. What should I do with it? Is not in either categories, and maybe could do more for you than either one of the other categories. So that's the pentacles, and it kind of, I'm just gonna pick them up and move on. So here we go again. We'll do 4 more and try to get them in the camera. So for instance, in this one, we've got the sky on the top and the earth on the bottom for both of these, and you have two, it looks like two equally needy people here. And I think and I just came up with this last night, and again looking at these little bars, and I thought, well, these are indicating equality here, and this is mimicking the Seven of Swords, excuse me, the Two of Swords, and the dichotomy. How do you choose between two equal things? Well, this keeps the energy of the Rider-Waite-Smith charity, sort of, giving, those who have, giving to those who haven't. And so this indicates to me now a choice, having to make a choice between which or how much to give to people of equal need, which I think is interesting. I had never gotten that from a Rider-Waite-Smith card, even though there are two people there. So this highlights that particular dilemma, that choice. this one has the sky above also, and all of these have the sky above and the earth below on the bars, but this has the earth above and the sky below, whereas these are the sky above and the earth below. And this one has, at the top has the sky above and the earth below, but on the bottom it has the earth above and the sky below, so opposites. So, this card I can see being kind of the beginnings of the tree of life, and here they seem to have like the beginnings of a tree. So maybe that's what that's supposed to indicate. There's a clear division between the foundation pentacles. So in other words, you're at a stage where, and she even is holding something horizontally to kind of visually help with that. So here it's like the progress has been in terms of foundational work, and you haven't seen very much progress yet. And again, I would have to look at a Rider-Waite-Smith to see if that is also there and is just being pronounced here by the graphics intentionally, I'm sure, you know, being brought out. And this, if I were to draw a line, it would be right here. He seems to be sort of holding this, and it's equal parts foundation and outward progress. But we don't have little equal bars here. We have different bars. So I'm not going to belabor this, but you know, this video is also intended to just help me look at that and work it out. So let's see here. So I'm looking more at the divisions in the cards, which is again is something that I would have done more with a Marseille deck, is looking at the distribution of the symbols. And here she has, in the 9, she has 7 below and 2 kind of drifting away, like they have another purpose, and it looks like she's releasing the bird. So there might be also a kind of a giveaway here. And it's interesting that in the 10, it's essentially mimicked, but of course it would be 8 here and 2 here. I'm not sure what this up here indicates, but I feel like it does indicate something here. It's completely solid. And here there seems to be almost like the family creates a weaker or more demanding structure or something. So I'm going to put all of the court cards out together. So we have the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. So certainly makes sense to have corn here. But there's I mean, there's almost a sense of prayer there. You know, in terms of being turned away, you've got the downward feather, which, if I'm recalling correctly, does mean is peace, I think. And this great big pentacle, so maybe grounding and centering. I might keep these a little bit separate and look at like all of the pages, all of the knights, all of the queens, and all of the kings together. There's also kind of a funny thing going on that I've mentioned in review before between the kings and the queens, in that there seem to be some different age differences and not. I think the cups looks like they're of equal age. In the pentacles, she looks older than him. He definitely looks like a teenager or maybe 19 or something. And so it's like the queen is the mother of the king. And then in the wands, I think it looks like or maybe it's the swords. Maybe it's the swords. Where the king appears to be the father of the queen. You know, to my thinking, right? So here we have okay, so let's go back. Rider-Waite-Smith. The whole idea of a page is that, you know, they're in preparation, but the preparation within that era or lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, was that the page, I believe, was supposed to be assigned to a knight, and he's somebody who would run errands and messages, and that was his role and part of his way of the very basic learning of what it is to be a knight. Is kind of an observer, but an active observer, somebody in, you know, being given tasks to do, given things to do to prepare them. Whereas this looks like it's a meditation. And so you have sitting, standing, sitting, sitting. Whereas in a Rider-Waite-Smith, you'd have standing, riding, sitting, sitting. So again, to me, this looks very meditative, peaceful, meditating on how to be productive, I suppose. This, I don't know what these things are. The things with the little things on the end. I'm not sure what those are supposed to be. It's interesting here that the pentacle actually gets smaller as you go. So here it's big, maybe because it seems like a big task. And the further along you go, either the less important it seems, or there's less concern about it. So I'm not sure what all that says, but there it is. Maybe I'll put them over here to the side. All right, the cups. So the cups are full of wonderful pottery designs. All right, that's not going to work. I need more space over here. Let me get them out of the way. So here again, it's like the mood or aspect, like in the Two of Cups. seems, it's interesting that, you know, with their headdresses, they seem of about equal power. But they don't seem terribly engaged with one another, as you would see in a Rider-Waite-Smith. And there's something weird going on up here. It almost looks like two serpent figures, like feeding on this other thing. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a Pegasus or whatever. So in the, normally we have the caduceus, I believe, in this card. And it's, so it's supposed to be a healing union is the idea. So maybe they're emphasizing that aspect in this card, and this is not necessarily two people who are like soulmates or partners so much as people who need to mend their relationship in some way. That would kind of explain that feeling of caution that seems to be here. And then we have the Three of Cups. And again, I mean, this is looking more like labor than it is like enjoyment. And in this suit, they have these little figures up here and sometimes down in these corners. And I really can't make heads or tails of those. They vary too much. One thing that is noticeable, although we have a bird oddly sort of tipping into this jug, all of the cups, all of the pots are empty up to this point. And here he's got some growing, but it's almost like I'm growing flowers, but I really want a tree. And so he doesn't know if he wants more flowers. It's almost that sort of thing. It looks like he's holding something in his hand, but it's very unclear to me what exactly he's holding in his hand. But again, she's kind of creating that horizontal line graphically. And so here's another, we're back to empty cups. That's quite a haunting sort of Five of Cups. It's very interesting. But here we're back to, you know, here's, even though they're not smiling, you know, it's clearly people who feel bonded. And look at how well their plants are growing when they feel bonded. So it's much more prosperous than this character here. This, of course, being the Seven of Cups, is full of all kinds of odd things. And it's interesting that, you know, that the cups are really tall. It's like there's more underneath there that you can't see, whether good or bad. And then here we're back to beautiful cups. Fascinating designs, but empty. So we're back to empty. So maybe that's kind of the most significant thing here, is whether they have anything in them. Although here we have the 9 and they're still empty. And then we have luck here with the clover. And if you divide here, they're mainly like floral designs, whereas these has two animals. What, I don't know if that's an animal or a lamp. and clover. But it could be, you know, things that are established and things that are flowering. Um, and then we have the 10. And as I was looking at the 10 last night, I found it quite interesting because they're all essentially the same, except for the middle one, having the narrow bottom. And yeah, and I can't remember what kind of pot that's called, but they all are essentially the same thing. They're all pots with a wide bottom that have the bands on them, and yet they're not the same. So it's an interesting way of expressing family. It's like these pots are all from the same family, but they're not all the same. So that I thought that was a really interesting way of um, indicating that. So I'm going to pick these up, and then we're going to put down the court cards. So, Page, again, he's got this big urn. He's got his fishes, and he's sitting there again, kind of in contemplation. The knight is standing. His pot is still pretty big. We have the queen. Hers is still pretty big too. There's not much shrinkage going on here. And yeah, to me there's not, his does look smaller, but it might just be because it's down here. I think if it were up here, it would pretty much be as big as hers or his. So, and this could be not a matter of size, but of perspective. In other words, it being closer to the viewer and him being further away. But it just makes it look like it's bigger. It's like he's trying to get a handle on his fish. It's kind of amusing. All of the different, first of all, there's this funny hair, but then there's, you know, these fish kind of going everywhere and having these weird looks, funny expressions to me. So yeah, he's trying to get a handle on his fish. I don't know if that's his emotions. So I usually think of the Knight of Cups as a giver, and he does look like maybe he's giving or delivering a pot. There was not that sense in the Knight of Coins. She appears to have a bird here, and he appears to have, like, not quite a bear claw, but similar to a bear claw here. These two strike me as essentially being the same age, like late 20s, early 30s. And I just don't have too much else to say about them at the moment. So I'm going to put them aside. See if we can move along. We've got the swords next. So I think somewhere in the little guidebook, which is very spare, it says that these are supposed to be ceremonial swords. So this is kind of a spiritual suit, more than not. And the minors, the suit of swords is supposed to be the Apache, or she calls it the Apachean group. The suit of cups was the Rio Grande, which is a river, so that makes some sense. And the suit of coins, which we already saw, was supposed to be the Navajo. Is there somewhere in here? It says here, the suit of swords has been inspired by the Apache ceremonial swords. The suit of clubs, which will be the next one, by the Hopi ceremonial clubs used for sacred dances. It's interesting because she says for the suit of coins is supposedly inspired by the Navajo medicine man sand paintings. So that puts a different perspective on that for sure. I'll have to go back and look at that. Okay. So I don't know if this makes a difference. This design that's on the swords, you'll see when we get to the quartz that the different quartz have different lengths of these things. Here we see them quite long. I mean, I think this is very Rider-Waite-ish. This is less so, but I'm not sure what everything is that's being represented. And it starts to have the things in the corner. So we have 3 feathers there connected, and then in each of 3 corners. And then we have this symbol in the other corner. You can make that out. And we've got this thing here, and I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. If it's supposed to be a symbol maybe for lightning, like a lightning bolt, the thunder beings. And this has here 3 feathers, 3 feathers, 2 feathers, 2 feathers. So it's completely balanced. And again, she's trying to decide between 2 things that are the same. This is also completely balanced. Well, this one seems to have a longer feather right here, but for the most part balanced. And so you know, in this particular situation, it almost makes me think in terms, especially since these are supposed to be ceremonial swords, of a misuse of prayer. Or maybe a misuse of intention. This is a pretty standard Rider-Waite-Smith interpretation of this, except that the person seems to be underground. And all 4 swords are actually pointing down at the person instead of one being horizontal with the person. And then here, and I think we see this in the next one too, is things are out of balance somehow. So in other representations, when it shows it in balance, you see that they are pretty much balanced. The length of the little thing connecting them is balanced. And here it's not. Here it's pointing downward essentially, more strongly than it's pointing horizontally. And then we see that again, where here we have some balance, and here we don't have balance. So, and interesting because really this is where there are 3 swords, and this would only be 2, and yet it has the longer one pointing down. So again, I don't know what that means. I don't, but I'm noticing these things because I'm looking for additional cues about how to interpret the cards, because all we have here is a guy with a sword in each hand and a pile on the bottom. There's no indication of there having been a conflict, or if these are all his swords and he doesn't know what to do with them, if he's choosing among the swords. The scenic aspect is lost. Or I should say this, the scenic context is lost. Whereas it's completely here for this one. This is essentially, you know, a Rider-Waite-Smith version of, you know, using somebody native. So, yeah, I don't know why. And so I like to sort of figure it out so that I have a feel for what's going on. Because I feel like this person has reinterpreted some of the cards or emphasized one aspect of some of the cards over others, and so I feel a little lost not knowing. And this is, there is a horizontal aspect to this card, but we pretty much have balance with the 2 elements in the corners, and there's no elements in the corners here. Again, I don't know if that makes a difference particularly. Here we have only 1 corner element, and it kind of mimics her situation in the sense that we have these 2 connected feathers here are kind of hurting a disconnected feather here. So they're giving this feather no place else to go. And if we look at her feet down here, we see that she's having to step carefully, but she has no choice because of what's behind her but to go forward. And so she's not blindfolded, but she's kind of being herded by her thoughts into a particular direction. Or perhaps in this case by something spiritual, or maybe it's a spiritual trial that she's going through. Very traditional. 9 of swords, but here we have 1 feather, 2 feathers, and then 3 feathers. And I don't know if that's just because that's the room that she had to put feathers, or if it has some kind of meaning. And here we just have the 2 feathers down here. And again, is it just because this just seemed like too much empty space and she decided to put a little element down there, or does it have some meaning? And what does it mean that this person has so much here but is still picking up another sword? I mean, does that make, is it self-inflicted, or is this noble that this person has all of these? Sometimes I interpret the 10 of Swords as responsibilities that are breaking your back. Things that you've taken on that have been damaging, but she's not down completely, and so she's still willing to pick up another one. I'm not sure. And sometimes these the zigzags on the swords go in different directions, and I have no idea if that's supposed to mean anything either. All right, so we've made it to the 10, which I kind of put in the wrong place, but we're going to get rid of these. We're going to go on to the pages. So again, sitting, standing, sitting, sitting. These people could potentially be the same age. So is it the Wands that's... Yeah, it's the Wands that looks like son and daughter. So again, yep, sitting. He's gesturing there with his hand. So he could be in something of a teacher mode. She almost looks like she's in a prayer mode, maybe. He might be a seeker of some kind. But you see, he has these zigzags here. He has no zigzags. She has two little zigzags, and he has not even as many as this guy. So I have no idea what that means. It seems like when I got the deck, I tried to look this up and couldn't find any information about it. These ceremonial swords and what they might mean. I mean, it could just be a way that you're honored, you know, that they don't have, like the zigzags wouldn't have any meaning or something. That's just a way of honoring some, just like we give somebody a plaque, you know. So yeah, I'm not sure what else to make of that. This is the only one that has a sword pointing up. Everybody else has the sword pointing down. So maybe he retains the aspect that I associate with the Page of Swords, which is that he likes to talk a lot about things that he just really has no proper understanding of. It's like he wants to teach about it, but really his sword should be pointing toward the ground and he doesn't realize it. That kind of a faux pas. So on to the wands. So the wands have these figures on them that have driven me a little bit crazy because I haven't... They look like envelopes to me. They look like envelopes. There's like a bunch of envelopes on here. Except for the Eight of Wands. I don't normally consider the wands a suit of communication. And these are supposed to be the Hopi. And I don't... associate the Hopi specifically with messages. Maybe I don't realize it. Maybe I need to look up Hopi ceremonial clubs and it'll talk about messages. But that's what I see here. Anybody is free to share what else they see. So the ace actually has the most, I think, with 4. I don't know that any of the other ones have 4 on them. You know, so this looks like a ghost message or an unformed message here. And then we have an upside down message. And then 2 right side up messages, or that's how I'm perceiving them. And then we have that symbol on the side, and I don't think all aces had the symbol on the side. Did they all? No, I'm asking that question. I feel like I need to go back. The Ace of Swords did. kind of the Ace of Cups did. It's just a block there. And where's the Ace of Pentacles? And the Ace of Pentacles did sort of. So they all seem to have something over here, with the swords and the wands having something more elaborate. This seems to have like a house, and this does. So I would have associated these with more the Pueblos, but that could be my own ignorance in terms of the Hopis also being home builders, or maybe the two, the Hopi and the Pueblo, somehow being related, that I'm not able to keep in mind right now. So here we have two equal symbols, just like so far I think in all of the twos, two equal symbols at the top. Here we have a right side up symbol, and here we have an upside down symbol. And here we're back to two that are equal. Here we have no symbols, and it looks like no, so this to me is like after the competition and nobody is talking to each other. So there's no messages going on here. And it was really the lack of those envelopes that cued me into what the heck was going on here, because I'm thinking, are they just, I don't know, they're just sitting there. I didn't know what so if there's no communication and they're so close together, to me that means this is like the after tarot maybe. If it didn't work out well and everybody's just angry with each other. This again, the one on the top is upright, the one on the bottom is upside down. And we do have a vertical thing. It's like 3 are upright, 2 are with the upside down, miscommunication, lack of communication, whatever it is. And then he's got this big rod. So maybe he's, the 6 of Wands is a mediator. I don't know. Here we just have this upright symbol here of the envelope. So maybe he's the only one that is going to be heard. Maybe he has earned the right to be the one who speaks. Here we have kind of a division between 8 and 8, and both of the symbols are upright. So maybe negotiation. Here we have the 9 and only one symbol, and it's in the upright. But this looks like a classical, except there's, well, he has something on his head. But he doesn't look that beleaguered, frankly. And he's got actually 3, 3, and 3 there, as opposed to 9 or 8 and 1. So it's kind of got a different vibe. And then this is interesting because even though it's got upright and upright, the person is holding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4 are dropped or upside down. And again, I'm not quite sure how to interpret that. Maybe they're just lost messages. Even if they're positive, they're lost. Okay, so now we're going into the final quartz. And this has some interesting directional things going on with the ceremonial element here. So again, the page is kind of upside down. I'll have to look at the pentacle again. to see if it's the pattern on it is upside down or something. So the Knight of, or the Page of Swords didn't have his sword the way the more mature people did, and here he doesn't either. It's upside down. Maybe he hasn't picked it up and actually started using it yet. But he's got a little owl here to help him. Not to mention the salamanders or lizards on there. And so he's holding his horizontally, and he does have kind of an uncertain expression on his face, and this is a spear here. So I'm not sure what that's about. And then she's holding hers kind of at a diagonal but upright, and he's holding his upright. And this is the one where she looks like she's the daughter of this man. So we have two suits where the king and the queen look to be about the same age, and then one suit where it looks to be father and daughter, and one that looks to be mother and son. And I'm not going to belabor that further, but I am going to let me look at all the pages. There's the Page of Swords holding his element there the wrong way. Here he's letting all his fish escape, but I don't know that it's supposed to be about fish anyway. I'm trying to see. No, the pentacles are never, they don't really have a perfect upright. Nobody is, so these are the only two that have that directional aspect to their tool. These two really don't. They're all sitting. So this one has the back turned, this one's front, this one's back turned, this one's looking diagonal, and this one's looking to the side. So I don't know if those directions have anything to do with anything. I think if I thought about it a little bit longer, it probably would, especially if I had a bunch of the pages in a reading. The knights in this deck all look a little forlorn. If they're supposed to be teenagers, like the 14, 15, 16 age, they kind of depict that awkwardness fairly well. Yeah, they all look like, somebody's given me this authority, or I'm supposed to be putting on this authority, and I don't really know what to do with it. I'm trying to see. Sorry, I don't have them all in the image here. So I feel like it has to do, the courts have to do with sort of an initiation process, and this is the most awkward, uncomfortable initiation process because, again, there are expectations and you don't know how to meet them, whereas the pages were more of a preparation, solitary preparation for the most part, except for the Page of Wands. Or no, Page of Swords, who seem to be expostulating on something. Here are the Queens. I like the Queens for the most part. And I think I like the Kings for the most part. They're pretty much all facing forward, except for the Queen of Swords, who again seems to be in prayer. The others all seem to have their eyes open and focused on the viewer, giving a sense of having their own authority. And she doesn't look so open, but these two look very open, like she's wanting to talk with pride about her wonderful cup. This one, like she's willing to answer any question. She looks very open, very outgoing, like a Queen of Wands would be. Personality would be expected. And this person does look a little bit more closed, maybe protected of what she has. And again, she's got her eyes closed as though she's looking inward in thought. So normally among queens, I think of the Queen of Coins and the Queen of Cups as being the most introverted. And here I would see the Queen of Swords actually as being the most introverted. And lastly, the Kings. Again, this king looks very young. And confident, but not with the same confidence as these three. There seem to be, and I think I've seen that in the Queens before, but this time not quite so much, but there seems to be clear age differences between these kings. This being the youngest, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one looking quite senior. But otherwise, you know, this guy's facing sideways. This guy's kind of 3/4, and these two are pretty much straight on. But I can't say that I see much significance in that, frankly. And I look at those things because in the past I've looked at some cups wanting to come out, 2 of Cups and the 6 of Cups. I've looked at the Knights in tarot decks and found some interesting directional things going on with Knights, and thinking that it might refer to the phases of the moon. So I think it was the Knights. So I've been rambling here. This really has not been an introduction. It's been an attempt to really figure the deck out. It is an introduction in the sense of showing the whole deck and some of the issues I have with it and some of the figuring out difficulties I'm expecting to have with it. But I'm going to end this video, and then I think I'm going to attempt a spread with it just right off the bat here, and we'll upload that probably the next day. Yeah, having just kind of refreshed my thinking and confusion regarding this deck, I want to try it like in a 9-card spread and just see what it looks like and how it speaks to me with a bunch of the cards laid out together. So thanks everybody who has come along for the ride with me and hung out for this length of time exploring this deck. And I will see you again soon, and you can expect to see me trying out various spreads with this deck throughout the month of September. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.